I guess everybody here has been an employee. Most of you have worked or are about to go to work. Let me ask a question before I start today's presentation. Based on your understanding, what is a company's number one most valuable asset? You can tell me. Can you put your hands up? What is a company's most valuable asset? John, go ahead. Unmute your microphone, John. Tell me, what is a company's most valuable asset, sir?
Of course, the employee.
Very good. People, human capital, is a company's most valuable asset. Now, some people will tell you that that's wrong, but respectfully, and no disrespect to some other academics, without people, a company cannot function. Without talent, the company cannot achieve its mission, vision, or objectives. Regardless whether you look at Alibaba, which is an online business driven by a very large computer server and about 200 people that actually work to maintain that server, pack orders, or look after Alibaba sellers to make sure orders go out. Alibaba is an online business, but without the people who make its infrastructure, its online infrastructure work, Alibaba would go out of business. Last Valentine's Day, Alibaba processed nearly in excess of $200 million in orders. Not because they have 200 million staff, it's because the computer server that they employ is very efficient. Their warehouse is very efficient, or the warehouse of their sellers are very efficient, and they have the right people to manage their computer infrastructure. So, regardless of how you think of it, retaining people in your business is the number one priority in managing a business. Okay, so today we're going to look at how employee retention, how do you keep the company's number one asset? How do you retain it? You just give them more money? Is money the answer? Who thinks money is the answer? Put your hand up if you think money is the answer to retaining employees. Put your hand up. Everyone, come on. Who thinks money is the answer? All right, well, thank you, Maria. Money is one factor, but it's definitely not the only answer. There's probably about 30 different answers. Thank you, Mylene. Okay, there's probably about 30 different factors. Money is very much a factor for many, especially in third world economies where salaries are very low or where you work 6 days a week or 5.5 days a week for $200. That is a factor. So let me today start my presentation by sharing my screen and talking about the factors that affect employee retention. Employee retention, ladies and gentlemen, can be a major player in whether the company is profitable or not. Employee retention can either make or break a company. Can everybody see my screen? Could you wave your hands for me? Hi, John, can you see my screen? Great. So employee retention, guys, is a major factor because without employees, whether you take McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, or Coca-Cola, none of them would survive. Every time you go into McDonald's, you see a team of young people, crew members, cooking the burgers that Raymond Albert Kroc developed when he founded McDonald's some 35 years ago. McDonald's didn't come from any machine. McDonald's was the creation of one man who used to sell paper cups and drive an old FJ Ford and try to look for business because his wife was angry that he couldn't give her enough money to buy groceries. So all of this is all about retention of people. Raymond Albert Kroc founded the McDonald's empire with two other people, two black Negroes known as the McDonald's brothers. Now, the McDonald's army around the world is more than 60,000 workers around the world. All right? So if employee retention wasn't a factor, would McDonald's still be in business today? I'll ask you the same question at the end of today's lecture. So what is employee retention? What do we mean by employee retention? Employee retention in a business organization's ability to keep its employees employed. Because if you cannot keep the people you have working for you and they keep leaving you, every time somebody leaves you, you have to spend money on advertising for a replacement. You need to bear the costs of training a new person so they can do the job and be able to engage in the environment or your work environment with their fellow employees. Retention is all about keeping your staff, holding on to your staff. You know, it's just like when you get married forever. You never plan to get divorced. The same when you employ someone. The plan should be for them to continue working for you until they get married, they have children, their children have grandchildren. The plan should be to foster a positive and engaging work environment so people do not leave. Let me ask you a question. Let's take an airline, someone. Does anybody know how much it costs to recruit a stewardess or a flight attendant and qualify that flight attendant to work on a flight? Can anybody tell me? Do you know how much it costs? Who can tell me? Can you put up your hand? Come on, any idea? Anybody have any idea? Do you think it's cheap? It's not cheap, let me tell you. Does anyone know how much it costs? Come on, Danilo, do you want to try? How much do you think it costs, Danilo? Danilo Wallo Jr., are you there, mate? Can you switch on your microphone, Danilo? Hi, Danilo. Can you unmute your microphone? Okay, you're a bit shy. It's okay, we'll talk to you later, mate. All right, so let me explain that every time an airline recruits a flight attendant, first they have to go through finding girls or guys that want to be flight attendants. Then they have to actually pay a team of recruitment specialists to travel all over the world to conduct what they call their 5-day workshop. They go through the first interview, second interview, then they bring them in to meet a clinical psychologist to make sure they're not crazy. Then they put them through a medical, and only then do they offer them the job. That's the start of the process. After that, they have to go for training for 3 months at the airline's training facility, where they learn everything about aircraft safety and how to serve passengers. The average cost of recruiting a flight attendant and training that flight attendant before she can actually step on an aircraft that actually flies is no less than $30,000 US. Does everybody understand that? By the time they give you a uniform, they pay for all your simulator activities, jumping out of the aircraft, diving into a pool, opening safety equipment. By the time you learn all that and pass all those exams, it will cost the airline a minimum of $30,000 US per flight attendant. So can you imagine if Ronalyn applied to Singapore Airlines as a flight attendant, and 3 weeks after she graduated, she says, I don't want to do this anymore. It's too hard. I want to go back to becoming a housewife. I don't want to work. The airline just lost $30,000 US because of 3 reasons. 1, they did not recruit the right person. 2, they did not treat Ronalyn well. Or 3, Ronalyn wasn't motivated to do the job because of the way she was trained. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? Yes or no? Very good. All right. So employee retention is one of the most important things that a company must focus on in running its business. Employee retention involves employing the HR department because HR, human resources, is responsible for employing people. It's responsible for training and developing people. In human resources, there's many departments. All right, so we say that the most valuable asset is the responsibility of the human resources department. What you need to do as a company or as a business is recruit people that can do the job in order for you as a company to be able to deliver your product or service to your customers. And the other goal is to reduce the turnover. You don't want people being hired, fired, or leaving every day. Because if you do that, every time somebody leaves, it will cost you more money to replace them, and it will affect your business because somebody else will have to do their job. So employee retention can impact your profitability and your success. Employee retention is important to ensure productivity, to reduce your costs, and to provide your customers with a service experience that exceeds their expectations. Does everybody understand by what I mean, exceeds their expectations? John, do you understand what I mean by that? John? Okay, so if Ronalyn goes to a shop and she buys a bottle of perfume and she wasn't happy with the way the male service staff treated her, but she still bought the perfume because it was on sale. That fact is that Ronalyn might never come back to that shop because the service did not make her want to come back. The only reason she bought from you is because the perfume was on 50% clearance and everywhere else it was at full price. So if too many people like Ronalyn come once and don't come back, you don't make money. So in order to increase overall revenue, decrease cost of recruitment and re-employment, and decrease your cost of acquiring new customers, you must make sure that you deliver the right level of customer experience. That means exceeding a customer's expectations each and every time they shop with you. And in order to do that, you need an experienced team of people working for you. Now, we said that the most valuable asset in the company is the responsibility of the HR department. Everybody know what the Human Resources Department does? The Human Resources Department is responsible for employing people, training people, motivating people, and following up to make sure those people stay on the job. HR is one of the second most important departments besides finance in any business organization. There are numerous roles in human resources that HR must carry out on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. They are recruiting or hiring and onboarding, doing orientation to bring new employees into the company to meet the requirements that the company may have for more employees to handle demands by customers. They also have to make sure that the salaries or the compensation they're paying employees is in line with the market and competitive, otherwise people will leave. They must make sure that for every new employee who joins the company, there is a career path that shows them that they're going to grow and they're going to become more successful and make more money. They must be able to understand what each employee wants and needs, and they must be able to develop policies that affect a working environment company-wide. Human resources or HR departments are basically the key to your number one asset, the key to your human resources. Does everybody understand that? Yes or no? Yes or no? Wave your hands for me, please. Come on. Everybody wave their hands. Honey May, do you understand what I just said, Honey May? Very good. Excellent. Okay. So remember, HR, human resources, as a department that's tasked to look after your most valuable asset, your human capital. Your procurement department buys material or goods for your business to make or sell. But without a HR department, there's no need for a procurement department because you don't have a business to sell. You don't have a product in your business because you've got no people to work for you. So HR is one of the key departments in your organization who basically make sure that you have the right people in order for you to be able to run the business. Now, what are the functions that HR might get help with? Some HR departments, like the HR department at Singapore Airlines, the HR department at Apple, the HR department at Google, they may have 30 or 40 people that work in HR around the world. And for some of their HR jobs, they may outsource them to a HR operations or HR, what we call outsourced company to do for them. For example, do the payroll transfer to all employees every month. Apple has 30 to 40,000 employees. They may transfer some of the exit interviews or background checks or dispute resolution. What do we mean by reference checks, background checks? If you apply for a job as a vice president at Apple, before they employ you, they send your qualifications and name to a company who goes to check that you actually graduated and your background before they employ you, especially if your position means handling money or trade secrets and technology. They want to make sure that you're not there to steal from them. So all of the roles of HR are very, very sensitive roles because they're dealing with the company's most valuable asset. A HR department is an essential component of any business. Without a HR department, you cannot operate as a business and you cannot make money as a business. HR departments are not only responsible for the people you employ today, they're also responsible to make sure that they plan what's going to happen when Miss Alicia goes on maternity leave. Do we have enough staff to replace her? Do we have enough staff to cover if somebody is sick? In 6 months' time, we're opening another shop. Do we need more staff to cover that shop? All of these are key questions that the HR department must look after in order to support the operation. The long-term goal of HR is to create a more positive, loyal, productive workforce, which ultimately benefits your business and allows your business to be more profitable. All right, so why is HR important? Because HR is responsible for recruiting your number one asset. It is responsible for promoting business harmony through the implementation of various strategies and practices. And it's also responsible for making sure they enhance the quality of the people that work for your company so those people are more productive through training. All right, can everybody here or anybody here tell me, what does it mean to motivate employees or to train employees? Who wants to give me an example? Try. Don't be shy, guys. I'm here to correct you. What do we mean by motivate employees? Anyone can tell me? Okay, what about Ronald? Can you tell me, Ronald? What does it mean to you for the HR department to motivate? Go ahead, Ronald. What does it mean? Ronald?
Hi, good evening, sir.
Good afternoon. What does it mean when we talk about motivation, Ronald? Tell me what you think.
It's like, for me, sir, motivation is like giving an advice to someone.
Okay, let me help. Would you agree with me that motivation is when your HR department listens to you, guides you, and constantly trains you to become a better employee? Would that be motivation for you?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Thank you, Ronald, and you did very well. Thank you so much. Okay, let me go to someone else. Hi, Hajat. Hajat, how are you today? It's good to see you, young lady. You're looking gorgeous as ever. Tell me, what do you think motivation means to you, Hajat?
Yeah, hi. Motivation, it's related maybe to benefits, bonus, also employee of the month, some so in this way the employee they will feel motivated from different sides.
Very good. So to you, motivation means making sure that you understand your employee, you bond with your employee, and you have open communication with them and constantly show that you care about them. Would you agree with me?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Hajit. Very good. Excellent. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. So motivation, ladies and gentlemen, in essence, is being able to create a relationship and understand who the people that work for you are and what is it that makes them more productive. Is it that they want you to praise them more often? Is it by providing them training so they believe they have the skills to succeed? Is it by providing them a sense of security so they know that they will not be unemployed in 5 or 6 weeks? All of those play a role. Every single one of those elements plays a role. Because if Kuslin comes to work today, but Kuslin is worried that his factory might close down next week, he is not motivated to work hard because he knows next week he's going to lose his job. He doesn't care. So a sense of security based on the way the company guides its employees or the way the company motivates its employees is very, very important. Does everybody understand what I mean by that? Yes or no? You wave your hands, please. Thank you so much, everyone. All right, so we talked about motivation. Can anybody else tell me, other than money, what else can motivate you? Can anybody give me an example? Other than money, when you have a job, what else motivates you? Who can give me an example? Desianis, can you give me an example? Is it only money that motivates you, or is it something more than money? Okay, let's talk to Linolin. Hi, Linolin. What motivates you? Go ahead, Linolin.
Hi, sir.
Yeah, what motivates you?
When I receive an appreciation from the company, sir, and when they give me a reward and the recognition, yes.
They give you a certificate of recognition or financial reward. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Linolin. Very good. Very good. Thank you so much. Okay, so Linolin said certificate of recognition, financial reward. Let's talk to Mary Jane. Hi, Mary Jane. Thomas, I can't see you. Go ahead, Mary Jane. Go ahead, Mary Jane. Can you unmute your microphone? Mary Jane, can you unmute your microphone? I can't hear you, Mary Jane. Go ahead. Okay, let's try Thomas first. Hi, Thomas. Unmute your microphone. Tell me, what motivates you, Thomas? Hi, Thomas. Okay. All right, let's talk to Jenilyn. Hi, Jenilyn. Can you unmute your microphone?
Thank you. Good morning from my end.
Who's this, Thomas? Yeah, go ahead, Thomas. What motivates you?
Yes, good morning. I'm talking from Sierra Leone. I'm attending class from Sierra Leone.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Tell me, what motivates you? Is
There's
it
a lot
only
of
money
things
or
can
what else?
motivate me.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, not money.
What is it? Tell me.
As an employee,
yes,
I am motivated when I'm given the right space to do what I can do best.
So when you're empowered,
my skills,
very good. Okay,
my skills and everything. When I have the opportunity to display my skills, my innovation, and every other thing within the appropriate environment, that can motivate me. Promotion will follow, but really,
okay,
yeah,
very good.
So
what you're saying is empowerment in line with your skills motivates you. Then, therefore, as a result of that, you can become more productive.
Yes, definitely.
Very good. What else, Thomas? Anything else?
Definitely.
Okay, give me one more. Are you there, Thomas? Okay, thank you, Thomas. Let's go to the next person.
Okay, then. Thank you, too.
Thank you. Thank you for your input, Thomas.
Okay.
That was very good. I'll talk to you again shortly. Okay, Daniel Mutiwa. Hi, Daniel. You want to share? Go ahead, Daniel.
Thank you very
Yeah, hi,
much.
Daniel. You're welcome,
me,
Daniel. Go ahead.
Yeah. For me, I think I'll talk about a non-toxic environment, a good environment where the relationship between the subordinates and the superiors is mutual.
Very good.
You know,
So you want
yeah.
mutually respectful relationship. Very good.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Anything else that you can think of?
Of course, recognition, I think.
Very good.
Where
What sort of
the
recognition?
effort,
Only financial or what? What sort of recognition? What type of recognition?
Financial, but where the company gives benefits, like maybe on May Day, the company is able to recognize those that have put in the best and awards them something.
Very good. So
That's
it doesn't
really
have
motivating.
to be financial. It can be a gift. It can be time off. It can be a holiday. It can be a trip. Thank you, Daniel. Very good,
Yes.
Daniel. Much appreciated. I'll talk to you again shortly. Okay, let's go on. Let's talk to Jenilyn. Hi, Jenilyn. What can you add? Go ahead, Jenilyn.
Hi, good evening. Actually, for me, it motivate me, of course, the recognition and appreciation, feeling valued and appreciated for my efforts and
Yes.
contributions is a huge motivator for me. And as what one of the philosophers said, that let people seek fulfillment. So it is very fulfillment, and it is motivate me to work what I want, and it really helps me also to how to engage more about the business, and also the appreciate, because whether it's a simple thank you or recognition for a job well done, it can really boost my morale. And for me, that's it.
Very good, Jenilyn. You've done very well. Thank you, young lady. Keep that beautiful smile. Thank you so much. Okay, let me go on. I have who else have I got here? Sorry guys, I just have to go to the next person in the queue. Go ahead, Marianne. Hi, Marianne.
Hello.
Hi, tell me, Marianne. Good afternoon. Welcome to the session, young lady.
For me, as a employee or a single mother, the one who motivates me every day is my love for my family, especially to my daughter. So every time I feel tired or every time I feel upset, I just thinking that everything I'm doing is for my family and for my daughter.
God bless you, Marianne. I do the same thing every time I go home and see my 7-year-old daughter. God bless you, Marianne. I really appreciate that. Thank you for your honest input. I'll talk to you shortly. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go to the next person. Let's talk to Maria Aliga. Hi, Maria. Go ahead, Maria. Are you there, Maria? I need to. You guys need to be ready when I call on you guys. Go ahead, Maria. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
When the company provides coaching and training to the employees, it's a motivation for us.
Very good.
Especially relevant subjects.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you very much. Training,
and regular
ongoing training. Yeah, ongoing training and development, career coaching. Thank you, Maria. Very good. Excellent. Okay, who else would like to share? Anybody else would like to share? Okay, who have we got here? Yes, we have. I've got Jacob, and then I've got Hesron. Okay, go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, as for me, sorry, my network was breaking, but all in all, maybe the things that I want to say, maybe they've been said. What I can say is that I value a company that would do consider career development of employee, because they need it. It's very important. It's one of the motivating thing, because you cannot just continue to be maybe in one position here and there. The company should be able to recognize what you're doing, and must have that, career path for me. That's what I would consider motivation.
Thank you very much. Well said, Jacob. Thank you. Okay, I want to talk to one more person, And I believe there's 5 others that have put up their hands. I promise you I'll come back to you, all right? I promise you. Okay, go ahead. Are you there, Hesron? Go ahead, Hesron.
Hi, good
Yeah,
evening.
go ahead, Hesron.
Okay, all right. I thank you for myself. Like what really motivates me in a company or a business that I'm getting employed to is when, for example, I'm working in a HR department and we are working as a team, a very effective team. And
so for you, teamwork is very important.
Yeah, very teamwork to
Very
accomplish
good.
what has been
thank you very much
by the company.
You're welcome, Hesron.
Yeah, that fulfill the dream, the goals of a company, and that really motivates me when we work as a team and we achieve what the company wants. That's really motivates
very good, Hesron. You're on the right track. Thank you so much, Hesron. Okay, so what I'll do, guys, is I'll come back to you. Keep your hands up. I promise I'll come back to you. Don't put them down. So let me just go back to my presentation, everyone, and let's talk about what we've all been told. So basically, HR is responsible for fostering positive relationships through everything you've said. Financial reward, other rewards and compensation like benefits they give you, through ongoing improvement, career development and training, through listening to their people and trying to make sure that they provide their people a sense of security to work in, so people feel as if they're important or empowered in the organization. Steve Jobs said many times that when I employ people who are good at their job, I should not tell them how to do their job. I should simply give them targets or KPIs to achieve and let them have the empowerment to give me the best results, as Jacob said a few minutes ago. Okay, let's go on, guys. Okay, human resources can ensure the business harmony by implementing various strategies, and that is fostering positive relationships between employees and an employer, as well as enhancing the overall effectiveness of the business, and also that means generating higher profitability. When you think of it, every business is there to make a profit. We don't operate as charities, right? Does everybody agree with that? Yes or no? Do we operate business as charity? No. We operate a business to make money. So here are some ways in which HR can contribute to business and industry. HR first needs to be what we call an effective communicator. What do we mean by effective communicator? HR needs to facilitate open and transparent communication channels. They need to listen to both employees, managers, and even the very bottom of the employee rank and file, even the cleaner. They need to be able to communicate effectively, because if HR doesn't show that they're communicating or listening, then employees will tell each other not to trust HR because they're never there to help you. Remember, HR are the custodian of human capital, a company's most important and most valuable asset. So, in HR, the first key is effective business communication. How does HR exchange information and messages between the different people in the business and between the employees and teams or departments in the business? Sharing information is not a process. Sharing information is a skill that requires an effective way of communicating. Can anybody tell me, what is the difference between hearing and listening? Should a HR department hear or should it listen? Who can tell me? Go ahead. Who would like to tell me? Can you answer that, Mary Jane? Go ahead, Mary Jane. Hi, Mary Jane. What is the difference between hearing and listening? Go ahead, Mary Jane.
In the business side, I think hearing is, no, listening is the one, the process with which you are giving time for the employees to talk to you, to know what are their grievances if there is, or to know what are their needs, in their job, in their work, and hearing is knowing what's the things are going around the workplace. I think that's for me.
That's a very good attempt, Mary Jane. It's a bit more than that. Let me give you an example. If you have a boyfriend and he tells you, Mary Jane, you're beautiful, I want to marry you. What happens is your mind automatically starts listening. He loves me. He wants to marry me. And you start thinking, is he the right person for me? Why? And you start asking questions. Why do you want to marry me? You've known me for 2 years. Why suddenly? So what happens is different people react to different situations. But the difference between listening and hearing is with listening, you are aroused by the words that you're hearing and you ask questions. And from those questions, you come to a consensus. Yes, I'll marry you, or no, I won't. That's listening, okay? Now let's talk about hearing, Mary Jane. Remember when you were a young girl, you used to come home from school and your mother used to say, Mary Jane, you went to school today, you forgot to clean your room, young lady. What are you doing? What do you think I am, your maid? Mary Jane would go to her bedroom, close the door, sit on her bed, and put her earphones on, all right? Would she reply to Mummy? No, because why? Mary Jane knew that she's not interested in cleaning her room. Am I right, Mary Jane? Yes or no? So the next morning, what did Mary Jane do? She woke up, she put all the dirty clothes under the blanket, put the blanket on top, put the pillow on top, made sure her mother couldn't see anything, went to school. Right, Mary Jane? Now, what happened when she came home that night? Again, Mary Jane, you think your mother's silly? You put the clothes, dirty clothes, I have to make up your bed? Right. So what does Mary Jane do? What does Mary Jane do? Goes into her room, closes the door, sits on the bed, puts on her earphones, messages her boyfriend, does her homework, has dinner, closes the door, goes to sleep, right? But this time, next morning, she doesn't put her dirty clothes under the blanket because her mother found them, right? So what does she do this time? She puts them under the bed, okay? And she goes to school. And this goes on for a week or 2 weeks until Mary Jane's father gets very angry, all right? Then, when her father starts yelling at her, Mary Jane listens. Yes, Dad, what's wrong? Why are you angry at me? Well, your mother told you to clean your room. You didn't. Well, Daddy, I did. I hid the dirty clothes under the bed. No, you must put them in the washing machine. Only then does Mary Jane listen. Do you agree with me, Mary Jane? Yes or no? Was that you when you were a young girl? Oh, come on. All of us did it. You did it once, right? Only once, right?
Yeah, during exam. During exam.
During exams. All right. So every year when you had exams, you did it, right? Whilst you were at high school. Very good. I did the same every day, Mary Jane. So we're both in the same boat. Thank you, Mary Jane. Wonderful talking to you. So the difference between listening and hearing is listening is called active listening. I want everybody to write it down. When we actively listen, we must collect information, analyze information, ask questions, come to a consensus. Everybody understand that? Now, during active listening, you need to ask 3 types of questions. My co-host, can you write these in the chat box, please? The first type of question is what we call an open question. Open question. The second type of question is what we call a closed question. And the third type of question is what I call the reflective question. R-E-F-L-E-C-T-I-V-E. Open question, closed question, reflective question. Thank you, Govind. All right, so let me go on. What is an open question? An open question is where I ask Mary Jane to tell me about herself. She tells me a story. I'm Mary Jane Danu Joyono, and when I was a kid, I was a very good girl. I never upset my mother. I always did my homework. Sometimes when I had an exam, my mother was very unfair. She expected me to clean my room, but I was more focused on passing my exams. Also, I had to go out and see my boyfriend. Cleaning my room wasn't really important. Hypothetically, Mary Jane, all right? So an open question is where we allow people to tell us a story. Okay? Does everybody understand that? Very good. Now, what is a closed question? Very, very, very simple. Annalisa, are you a female or a male? Closed question. Because Annalisa can only give one of two answers. Male or female, right? Yes or no? Okay. Another closed question that HR could ask. Govind, were you late for work today? Yes or no? Closed question. But if I ask Govind, why were you late for work? That becomes an open question because Govind will tell me a story and give me 100 excuses why he's late for work, right, Govind? Yes? Good man. We all do it, Govind. All right. Does everybody understand the difference? So active listening starts with open question, closed question, and then we have the reflective question. Can anybody tell me what the reflective is? What do we mean by reflective? It's where you reflect on what someone told you, Annalisa. Let me give you an example, Annalisa. If I say, thank you for sharing about your boss, Annalisa, you tell me that your boss doesn't listen to you and he always tells you off whether you do a good job or a bad job, and that is the reason why you want to resign. So I'm reflecting on what Annalisa told me to get confirmation. Do you understand that, Annalisa? Very good. So it's very important in HR to reflect so you confirm what the employee is telling you. Does everybody understand what I'm saying so far? Yes or no? Put your hands up, everyone. Come on. Thank you very much. So remember, in active listening and effective communication, 1, open question, 2, closed question, 3, reflective question. Does everybody understand that? Yes or no? Yeah? Very good. All right, let's go on, guys. Thank you so much. Let me share my screen. Okay, so effective business communication is very important, especially coming from our HR department. Effective communication and clear communication is how employees and management interact to reach organizational goals. The reason why HR needs to use effective communication is to reduce error and having people walk out on the company. Why is human resources important? Let's go through them. 1, managing and using people effectively and making sure that the company has the right number of people. Number 2, by allowing the company to appraise its staff or do performance management and align reward with ability and performance. For example, if let's give an example, Mary Jane, Hajat, Jenilyn, Annalisa, Mylene, Lani, Pem, and Govind worked for the same company. They all did the same job. They were all sales clerks, okay? They all were sales clerks. But every time, at the end of every week, Jenilyn had the highest targets. Should all the sales consultants get the same pay increment at the end of the year? No, because Jenilyn had the highest sales every week. So HR is there to make sure that employees are rewarded fairly, not because they hold the same position or because they're males or females, because they deserve it based on their ability. Does everybody understand that? And that's how you motivate people to stay there. Because if Jenilyn got the same increment as Mary Jane and Govind, but her sales were 10 times higher, gentleman would say, why should I work for this company? I'll go and sell the opposition's product. I'll make more money. Am I right, gentlemen? Yes, gentlemen? Very good. Does everybody understand that? Yes or no? Okay, let's move on. Okay, so we've spoken about managing people effectively. All right, we've spoken about tying performance to ability and achievement. It's also about making sure people receive ongoing training and career improvement by teaching them more so they feel more empowered, by allowing employees to be more innovative, more creative, providing them the flexibility to show their talents, by applying new approaches and allowing people to grow within the company through career development and succession planning, by allowing people to transfer from one part of the company to other, and we call that interorganizational mobility, or as we say in HR, IOM. For example, if you work for Singapore Airlines in Singapore as a captain, but your wife is from Canada, they provide you interorganizational mobility. Instead of you being based out of Singapore, you're allowed to say, can you base me out of Canada because my wife wants to live in Canada? You're still a Singapore Airlines pilot, but instead of being based out of Singapore, you would be based in Canada and only operate flights out of Canada. Does everybody understand what I mean by that? Can everybody wave their hands? Yes or no? Thank you. And last but not least, it's being able to manage the implementation and integration by making sure you have staff that are prepared to improve their skills, learn new technology, by training them, communicating with them, and telling them what they're doing right. And the only way you can do that is by leading. Because if you lead, staff will follow. If you push, staff will run. They will go and work for your competitor. Let's look at the very core of HR and their core functions. All right, let's look at them one by one. Here we go. Okay, the first function is administrative responsibilities, which is paperwork, writing policies and procedures. Then they have to plan for the manpower the company needs. They then have to recruit and select the right people. Okay? They have to make sure that they provide learning and development and training for those people, and they must make sure they maintain a fair way of managing people's performance through ongoing training. So if we look at that and then we go to the bottom part of the list, just bear with me for a minute, would you guys? Okay, if we go to the bottom part of the list, they have to focus on where is this person's future. He can't be a junior clerk. He has to go from junior clerk, senior clerk, assistant manager to manager. Career planning. They have to make sure that the function of each job is fair. It's not going to make sure that the person doing that job can handle it. That will allow them to decide how many people they need to do the job. The next most important element is rewards, compensation, salaries, and benefits. Then they have to make sure that they're not breaking any laws. In some countries, we have unions. They have to make sure that their staff don't go and complain to a union. So they have to make sure that they are following industrial relations. And they must always be open to hearing from their employees. It must be an open communication channel through active listening. And most importantly, they have to make sure that the health and safety of their employees is not compromised and that their staff have a work-life balance so they enjoy coming to work and do not get burnt out through employee well-being. So all of these things, ladies and gentlemen, are core functions of a HR department who is responsible for a company's most valuable asset, its people. Does anybody have any questions about the 12 key functions of HR? Does anybody have any questions? Please ask me. Go ahead. Anyone? Anybody want to ask a question? Now, if you work for a small or medium enterprise and they do not practice all the 12 functions of HR, you will find that they have a high turnover and low retention. The maximum acceptable level of turnover in a company in any given month should not be more than 1%. Does everybody understand that? So if you have 100 employees and 10 of them resign or get fired every month, forget fired. Fired is due to bad performance. You chose to do that. But if you have 10% leave you or resign every month of their own choice, you have a problem. If you have 100 employees and only one resigns every month, that is the maximum acceptable or healthy rate of turnover. Okay, now you might say, what about a company like Singapore Airlines with 40,000 people? Well, 1% of 40,000 is not one. But you need to understand, more than 1% is dangerous for any business when it comes to turnover. So companies should basically exercise a management decision to keep retention at 99% month over month. That is the ideal situation. Do you think companies do that today? Oh no. If companies could retain that or manage that today, they'd be multi-million-dollar companies. There's only a few companies in the world that are able to do that through their compensation package. Many years ago, it was Facebook or Google. People used to work from home. They were getting paid high salaries and they worked or played as long as they were signed in. But after COVID-19, when people worked from home, Facebook and Google lost a lot of money. They found out that they don't need those people anymore because during COVID, they did it with half the number of employees. Okay, so what happened? When Google said you can no longer work from home, people started resigning. Okay, the turnover rate went up, the retention rate went down. But now Google has settled down again, and the people who still work for Google, the retention rate has stabilized. So it is really important to understand that more than 1% turnover month to month or month on month, depending on the size of the company, is unacceptable in today's economic world from a HR perspective. Yes, Thomas. Go ahead, Thomas. Hi, Thomas. Go ahead.
Just on mute.
Go ahead.
I seems confused. There are two responsibility, HR functions rather, that may be confusing to me or interwoven.
Yeah, go ahead.
One
What
has to do with well-being.
Yeah.
And two, health and safety. What are the distinction? Well-being as a responsibility and health and safety.
I'll explain that. Health and safety is meeting the health and safety requirements depending on the industry or the type of work you're in. For example, if you work on a building site, you should be wearing a helmet. If you are working high up on a building site, you should be wearing a safety harness and you should be latched to a safety lock somewhere on the structure. That is health and safety. So HR has to make sure that different interdepartmental functions adhere to regulatory health and safety functions. That is health and safety. All right. Well-being, on the other hand, reflects on the work-life balance of employees. So if you expect people to work 18-hour days without enough rest, then you're not looking after their well-being. That becomes the other responsibility of HR. Does that answer your question, Thomas?
Yes, it answers my questions, but also make room for further explanation. There are some organizations Yet, because of they want to maximize high productivity, to meet their customers and other target, they create room for motivation, and they have this overtime strategy. If you want, you can work for so many hours overtime, and the incentive there follow. How can we reconcile that with well-being? How can we reconcile?
Well, Thomas,
because you overstretch.
Yeah, okay, hold on. Let me tell you that. If an organization does that, then their HR department leaves a lot to be desired. And we say in the professional world of HR, they're a credibility gap to their number one asset, their people. Now, you cannot stop all companies to comply. And that usually comes down on either executive management don't care about their people, or they're desperate and they don't want to invest money in recruiting more people. So what they say, our staff live below the poverty line. They need money. They can work. It's not our problem. They get sick. It's their problem. Now, that organization is not the ideal organization, unfortunately, but they do operate around the world. Let me give you an example. Many years ago, Apple had a problem because the people that build the phones for Apple, Foxconn in China, were actually exposed for mistreating their staff in China. And there was a big exposition about Foxconn, and Apple had to send their own people into China to make sure that Foxconn provided the right benefits for its staff. Now, you all know how Foxconn works. They might have 20,000 employees from all the different outsorts of China that come and work in Foxconn factories. These people live in a dormitory. They wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. They stop for a break of 10 minutes all at the same time, like they're army soldiers. 10 minutes later, everybody goes back to work. At 12 o'clock, they get 30 minutes for lunch like soldiers. At 3 o'clock, they get a 5-minute coffee break like soldiers. And they must have their head down and make a certain number of phones every day. But what Foxconn was doing, it wasn't feeding them properly. It reduced the amount of money it was spending on feeding them and giving them enough sleep. And they were not paying them what was promised. So this became known to international labor organizations. And Apple had to protect its reputation by exposing this and making Foxconn correct it. So, no matter where you go, Thomas, there's always going to be companies that don't practice professional HR ethics or international standards. But it all comes down to the company. But not all companies are like that, Thomas. Some companies are very particular. Does that answer your question? Thank you, Thomas.
Yeah, true.
Okay, so does everybody understand that? Yes or no? Let me go on. Okay, so now that we've looked at the 12 HR functions, let's go to the next part. Human resource planning is very much about knowing what the company needs. So HR has to understand, right now, how many staff do we need and when do we need them by? Number 2, they have to be responsible for the recruitment of selection of the right staff to do the right job. And for them to do that, they have to make sure that they are able to offer prospective workers the right package to make that company one that people want to work for. Number 3, they have to be able to manage the performance of the people who work for them. Okay, so good performance management involves strong leadership, clear goal setting, and open feedback. Open feedback means active listening and open communication. Now, most companies do performance management once a year annually. But right now, that performance management needs to become more frequent. So most companies do it mid-year and end of the year. They do 2 evaluations a year. And more than 69% of multinational companies around the world have now implemented performance management mid-year and annual. So each employee gets 2 performance reviews. The other practice is for companies to do 360-degree feedback of their company at least once a year. Does everybody understand what 360 feedback is? Does everybody here understand what 360 is? Performance evaluation is where they evaluate people one-to-one individually, all right? 360 feedback is when a company employs a third-party external consultant to ask employees to give their opinion on the people above them and the people below them, as well as the people on the same tier. So you rate your relationship with the people on your right and left, the people above you and below you. It's a full evaluation. Now, what usually happens with 360 is the company HR department does not do it itself. It actually gets an independent team from external consultants to go in and do it. And that, therefore, once Thomas knows that this 360 questionnaire is coming from an external consultant and says, Thomas, tell us about your manager, his manager, the manager above him, tell us about your colleagues at the same level as you, tell us about the people below you, Thomas is more able or more prepared to tell his story to a third-party consultant. That is 360-degree feedback. But this important factor you must remember, with 360-degree feedback, the consultant does not share your name with your employer. All he shares is statistical information about how many people were satisfied doing Thomas's jobs, how many people were satisfied or dissatisfied working with a particular manager. But they will never share the employee's name who gave that feedback. That is the correct way of doing 360 feedback, okay? Does everybody understand that? Yes or no? Okay, thank you. Let's go on, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, the next question here is performance management is also an instrument to close the gap between the workforce you have today and the one you have tomorrow. So by doing performance management, you're able to understand what people are weak in, whether they had the right qualifications, and in future, when you employ people for that job, what adjustment should you make to the minimum qualifications to help the future employees of tomorrow? Okay, the next element, as we said, is learning and development. So HR has to be responsible for enabling employees to develop the skills they need for the future by constant training. Remember, HR have to involve by constantly listening to what the needs of the employees are to bridge the gap between their workforce today and the workforce being able to deliver the targets moving forward into the future. If you look at here, for example, companies with an annual pay bill of more than £3 million in the UK have now got to contribute 0.5% of their annual turnover into providing their employees training on a regular basis. This is a government and regulatory requirement in the UK for all companies. Why? Because before that, companies used to want to save money and not train people. You will find that this regulatory requirement now exists in most countries: Australia, Singapore, Canada, Germany. All require employers, companies, to set aside a certain amount of money to guarantee their employees training. In other countries like Belgium and Netherlands, learning and development falls under the employer's responsibility to take care of its employees. Okay? Now, there's one country in the world that doesn't regulate training, and that's the US, because each state of the US has different laws, and that's why the US is known for some of the worst employment conditions on middle-paid employees. All right? Because they're not developed, they just pay them. If they don't like it, like Walmart, they leave. So in other countries, learning and development is a priority, but in the US, unfortunately, until today, it's not. All right, so while organization must balance the economic factors and prioritize based on value opportunities, one thing they should never compromise is investing in giving their employees the skills they need in order to retain those employees and ultimately make them more valuable to the organization. Creating a space where employees can upskill themselves not only has holistic benefits, it also fulfills the need of individual employees. Does everybody understand that? Yes or no? Wave your hands. Okay, very good. Career planning. The fifth function of HR is to plan the career of people moving forward, to make sure that they have a career path or a road forward for those employees. Number 6 is function evaluation. And this means actually looking at each job function on a regular basis to make sure that that job function can be handled by 1, 2, 3, or 4 people. You have to make sure that if the job requires somebody to focus for 8 hours a day because they're building circuit boards, you must make sure that based on the number of circuit boards you want to build, you have enough people to meet that quota for the end of the day. So companies must functionally evaluate each job on a regular basis. Let's talk about a certain industry, like the airline industry. The airline industry is regulated. So if they operate an Airbus 380, A380, which seats 500 passengers, international safety regulations actually dictate how many flight attendants they need to have when they carry 500 passengers. It's not when they carry, how many flight attendants they need to have every time that aircraft operates. And this is a mandatory requirement by international safety regulators for airlines. So the function evaluation, the function of flight attendants for an airline, or how many flight attendants they need to have on that aircraft, is dictated by a regulator. Now, if you fly a discount airline, a budget airline, where there's no food and it's no service, you get on the plane, they give you a seat without a video, and you have to buy coffee. Again, the number of cabin crew required for a low or no service airline, a budget airline, a low-cost airline, is governed by legislation compared to a 5-star full-service airline like Philippine Airlines or Singapore Airlines. There is a ranking method that is used internationally. For example, when you come to an airline, you have flight attendant, senior flight attendant, cabin manager, flight service manager. Again, they are told how many people at different rankings need to be on the job. Okay, remember, when they decide how to pay you for a job, before they actually decide the salary, they use what we call a classification method or a points method, decided on how much responsibility that job requires. Are you responsible for the life of passengers? Should an aircraft captain be paid a higher salary than the first officer? Yes, because the captain is a decision maker. Does everybody understand what I mean by that? Yes or no? Does everybody understand what I mean by actually measuring the job function for different reasons? Yes or no? Can you raise your hands if you understand, please? Everyone? Do you understand it, Kuslin? Very good, excellent. So it's really important that when we talk about job functionality, when we talk about different jobs and different functions and the ability of different people to do different jobs, we have to measure their performance on a regular basis, okay? Does everybody know that? Yes or no? All right, good. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we need to understand what it is about each job function so we can make sure that we're paying that job function the right amount of pay and that we have enough people to carry out the function in order to be able to deliver the service that the company wants to deliver. If you're going to fly an A380, you have to be concerned about the safety of those passengers. You cannot have five flight attendants look after 500 passengers. It's not possible, because if there's an emergency, they would not be able to save the lives of all 500 passengers. Therefore, there is different job functions on an aircraft, and the regulator, the international standards for flight, international aviation standards for international airlines dictate the minimum number of each job function that has to be on an aircraft. Now, you might understand that on some airlines, when they operate an A380 that is going to fly more than 8 hours or 7 hours, depending on the country you're in, they don't carry one captain. They carry one captain plus 2 first officers. One captain, 2 first officers. The captain is the most senior. Then they have a senior first officer who's one step away from becoming a captain, and they have a junior first officer who needs more experience. So what that means is, once the captain is tired, the senior flight officer becomes the captain, the junior first officer assists him. When the captain is in his seat, the junior first officer works with the captain. When the junior first officer takes a rest, the senior first officer takes his place. So depending on what country in the world the airline is registered in, there is different job function minimum requirements on different size of aircraft. Does everybody understand that? Do you all understand now what I mean by job function? Yes or no? Everybody understand a simple example? Yes or no? Wave your hands, guys, please. Everyone. Kiao, do you understand what I said? Kiao, can't Zin? Very good, excellent. All right, let's go back to our lesson. Okay, so we talked about key function and key function assessment, okay? So when we talk about function evaluation, this helps the HR department ensure that the company is successful at both a strategic level and support level by having the right number of people do the right type of job. Last but not least, or number 7, actually, not the last, rewarding employees for their work, making sure we pay them the right amount of money and provide them the right benefits is a very important element of recruiting people and having them feel that they're psychologically secure and stable. And this means that they have to make sure that each job function is paid a salary in line with the market based on that job. Captain versus first officer versus junior first officer. Waitress versus assistant waitress versus buzzgirl or buzzboy. Now, what does reward mean? It's salary, career opportunities, benefits such as medical insurance, annual leave. All these play part of the rewards function, which HR has to deal with. Okay, so what does total reward or compensation mean to HR? Number 1, how much they're prepared to put into developing the employee, making sure that the basic pay is in line with the market, making sure that the basic pay recognizes that person's skills and experience, making sure that they make sure that this employee's well-being by making sure they're not being told to work excessive hours and maintain their work-life balance, by making sure you rewarded them so that they feel that their work is meaningful, making sure that you have a variable pay depending on their level of seniority, making sure the benefits are right, annual leave, etc., medical care, and making sure that your leadership is honest and transparent, and that whatever you promise the employee when you employ them is what you give them. Credible leadership. All right, so the 12 functions of human resources when it comes to offering an employee value proposition, which means a salary that is distinct and will actually give the company a good image so it reflects on its employees and enable them to hire people, you must offer an employee value proposition of total reward. That means basic salary, performance-based pay, bonuses, job security, autonomy, empowerment, growth opportunities, and a chance for them to develop and move through inter-organizational movement. Number 12 is industrial relations. HR is also responsible to make sure that the company meets the industrial relation laws in that country. It has to be there to ensure that the company is able to deliver on their industrial relation laws. Okay, so the most recent data shows that 92.2% of employees in Iceland were a member of a union. 67% of employees in Denmark were a member of a union. However, in UK, Estonia, only 23.5% and 6% of employees respectively were members of the union. In the US, workers found that even if they were members of the union, they still weren't being treated properly. And only 10.3% of workers in the US are members of the union. In Australia, at one point, about 6% were union members. Now, because unions are no longer able to get what employees want, most employees find it a waste of time contributing to unions unless it is mandatory, which is not the case in all industries. So, maintaining good relations with unions, especially where you have 92.2% union membership, because it is mandatory, like in some parts of Europe. If you can't work with your unions, the union will cripple your company because they can actually pull the plug and tell employees not to do anything and not to work because the employer is not cooperating with their union. So industrial relations is very important when it comes to the employer ensuring that their employees continue to be productive. Employee participation and communication is very important. If you don't advocate good communication with your employees, employees will leave. Maintaining honest, open communication is the most important element of employee retention. It's essential to promote an environment of trust and support where employees feel comfortable and psychologically attuned to going to work. This was stated by Linda Schaefer, the Chief People Operations Officer at Checker, one of the world's largest companies. Health and safety are critical. If you can't actually ensure the health and safety of your employees at a petrochemical plant or at a factory, then you are opening the door to lawsuits, staff being injured, shortage of manpower. For every company, take Shell, one of the world's biggest companies, the health and safety target for them is goal zero. That means 0 accidents. And this is the same, whether it's an airline, a shipping company, or even a factory. The health and safety goal should be for 0 accidents. Okay, let's go on. Well-being is very important. HR must support the well-being of its employees, so this involves proactively promoting mental, physical, and financial well-being by making sure they get enough hours of rest and are being paid a salary which is comparable with your competitors or the industry. Okay, let me give you an example. This in turn harms it. If you don't look after the well-being of your employees, okay, what you do at the end of the day, employees walk out, they get sick, they take medical leave. Let's look at employee benefits and perks. Employee benefits can include sick leave, childcare, health insurance, dental insurance, the number of days personal leave per year, life insurance, paid vacation leave, fitness, vision care, and retirement plan. All of these are important. All right, so let's look at this. 3 UK is a UK company, and 3 UK recently exposed what it does in order to actually look after its company. The 3 UK, a British telecommunications provider, implemented a well-being strategy to support their employees throughout the introduction of a 5G network and beyond. Some of the initiatives included a free flu jab. So they said at the beginning of COVID and shortly before that, that all their employees will be entitled to go to a company doctor and get a flu vaccination free of charge. Okay? A meeting free period on Wednesdays and 3 paid days off a year for personal moments. So on top of your annual leave, they gave you a meeting free period on Wednesdays. No meeting on Wednesdays, so you could relax and just do your job. And on addition to your annual leave, they gave you 3 days, which are called personal moment days, which you can take anytime throughout the year. This strategy success is evident because 83% of the office employees at 3K were very happy and started taking less sick days and became more productive. What's more, the flu jab program reduced sick leave by 25%. 25% less sick days a year from the total workforce, which exceeds some 4,000 or 5,000 people. Can you imagine how much money that saved UK, 3 UK? Does everybody understand the benefits of looking after your employees with rewards? Yes or no? Hajid, do you understand what all that means, Hajid? Yes? Yes or no? Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not saying that all companies practice this. Many companies don't. And that's a sad part of the world, because in some countries, the government cares. Like in Singapore, companies have to practice. But in the US, they don't care because every state has different laws. In some countries like China, they don't care because, you know, the Chinese economy right now, after COVID-19, it was facing some issues. Employees are taking shortcuts. Come on, you have over 100 million people in China. Can the government monitor that? Some people say no. And they've reflected that by the poor track history they have for employee relations and employee well-being. Workforce or industrial relations in China is at its ever-time lowest for not looking after employees. Bad working conditions are famous in China. They're getting better because of international pressure, but they still do not meet international standards, sadly. Does everybody understand where I'm coming from? Yes or no? Okay. Let me go on, guys, and share my screen. Okay, so now that we've looked at 3 UK, let's move on. Administration responsibilities like processing annual leave, processing change of address, updating an employee's records with extra certificates or qualifications are all key administrative responsibilities which HR needs to do. All right, so let's talk about Apple's HR strategy. Everybody knows Apple. Apple is known as a different company in many ways. Instead of promising work-life balance, Apple emphasizes hard work for all employees. The Apple career concept is for employees to have their careers rather than promising career advancement. The career path is not fully endorsed by Apple. Employees should inquire about other jobs in different units. So if they want to move throughout Apple, they don't have to wait for Apple's HR department. They simply apply for a more senior position in another department. What does Apple do so differently in talent management? Let me tell you, Apple doesn't offer a training and development program. Instead, Apple outsources this work to its employees. Training is available, but Apple does not create learning plans or offer recommendations. The employees have to go back and look for training that they need, and then tell Apple that they're attending that training. So this is one of the things that Apple practices, because there is no regulatory requirement in the US for Apple to manage the training or provide the training. So Apple adopts this philosophy, and the people that work for Apple are happy because Apple also offers a competitive salary based on the Steve Jobs philosophy. If you want people to work for you, then you have to compensate them for their experience and let them do the job that they're good at. Let's talk about this. How do you ensure that people are being developed with a career plan? You have to, on a regular basis, assess people through performance management and 360-degree feedback. You must always provide an individual development plan for each and every employee, which their manager discusses with them either on a regular basis or through individual coaching sessions. You must have a training program for each and every employee. Each and every employee should receive individual coaching sessions from their supervisor, manager, or head of department. And there should be regular follow-up from HR to make sure that this is effective. Why is employee retention so important for a company? One, to make sure that you have productivity flow and your company continues being profitable. Two, to reduce the need to hire new people and train new people again. Three, to reduce company costs. Because if you have a lower turnover rate, it means you have to spend less money on recruiting new people, advertising, employing employment agents, or wasting time training new people. 10 benefits of employee retention, ladies and gentlemen. Number one, okay, what is number one? Number one is cost reduction. Number two is morale improvement. Number three is experienced employees based on the years of service, they become more experienced. Number four is maintaining the need to reduce recruitment and training costs by focusing on the people you have rather than having to employ more people and retrain them. Increased productivity, better customer experience, improved culture, better employee experience, increased revenue, and improved employee satisfaction. Does everybody understand what those 10 benefits are? Yes or no? Yes or no? Okay, let me ask you all. Let me give you a common example, a hypothetical example. If you go to a handphone shop to buy a handphone, and the person serving you doesn't know anything about the technology because he's only new selling handphones, he's only been there for 2 days, will you be a satisfied customer? No. But if you get a salesperson who has 5 years experience and really knows his product, will you be a happy customer? You'll be a more satisfied customer. Yes or no? Okay, very good. Excellent. Okay, let me go on. Okay. What I want to bring out of today's lesson is really important. I just want you to understand that no matter where you go in business, ladies and gentlemen, these 10 benefits of employee retention are critical no matter what part of the world you're in. Just because the US doesn't regulate them, it's because the US doesn't think they're important, and the US has its own problems. Come on, look at it. We've got Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. They spend more time punishing Donald Trump than looking after their economy. They don't care about employees. All they care about is who's president and why he's a bad president. So are they focused on the right elements? Some people say yes, some people say no. The other problem in the US is that the federal government doesn't control employment rules. They're controlled at state level. And as you know, there's more than 20 or 30 states in the United States. There's a lot of states in the United States. So each state has its own jurisdiction. So does everybody understand what I'm talking about today? Yes or no? Does everybody understand it? Okay, so I want you to ask yourself something while I ask you. Is employee relations important for you? Why is it important? Why is it important? Why is employee relations important for you? Employee relations is important. Just think of it. I just told you, in the US, there is more than 30 states. In actual, there's 50 states in the United States right now. 50 independent state governments. Not 30, not 31. There's more than 30. To be precise, and I don't want to give you a heart attack, there's 50 different state legislatures. Each of them has their own laws regarding employment. So how can a country have 50 different sets of employment laws? Because the federal US government is not interested. They're too busy worrying about who's going to become president. People are no longer the #1 asset to the working economy in the US. But if you take countries like Australia, Great Britain, Singapore, the workforce, the people that stimulate the economy are a priority. And that's why the government regulates employment practices for everyone. Does everybody understand that? Yes or no? Okay. Does anybody want to ask me any questions about employee relations? Can you put up your hands, please? Go ahead. Yes, Epifania. Go ahead, Epifania. What's your question? Are you there, Epifania? Go ahead, Epifania. I'm sorry, Govind, Epifania is not responding to me. Okay, let's go to the next one. Yes, Thomas, go ahead, Thomas. Are you there, Thomas? Go ahead. Can you unmute your microphone?
I am there.
Sir?
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. By your teaching today, it seems employees are the pivot in making organizations successful, right?
Well, the human capital, the human asset.
Yeah, the
of any
human
company,
capital.
The human capital is a company's most valuable asset. Now,
Definitely.
some companies don't. Most respectful companies admit that. Some third-party companies in third-party countries, or countries like China, where human capital doesn't mean anything because they have over 100 million in population, unfortunately, sadly, their work ethics or their track history in human rights is going down the drain. But yes, a human asset or human capital should be every company's #1 asset.
Definitely. So here is my concern, right? I'm just for vacation in Sierra Leone. Here is my concern. There is a slow but steady growing concern in industrial relations. There are industrial relations in big companies in the world. You know, I follow General Motors, and in Korea, Samsung is now having some industrial relations. So this is a concern for me when it comes to human capital management or investment, as the case may be.
Okay, I agree with you. And yeah, I agree with you, Thomas. What you're saying is right. But unfortunately, Thomas, in your country, and I hate to say it, the industrial relations or the government's concern about the welfare of workers is not a priority. You admit that, right? It is not. In your country, it's not. Your government has different priorities right now. Let me give you an example, Thomas. Let's talk about Israel. Do you think employee welfare is a priority for the government in Israel right now? It's not. The current president in Israel, his only priority is to win a war, right? #1. Let's talk about Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Sri Lankan government is only focused on who's president and making money. All right. Another country, China.
Yeah.
What's the priority in China? The priority in China is for the Communist Party to rule, maintain maintain control of Hong Kong and Taiwan, and saying to the world, we have 100 million population, we're doing the best we can. And they know for years they've had a bad record in human rights, but do they consider that a priority? No. I can't tell you because I don't work for them. No. All right? Okay, but if you compare that to countries like Singapore, where they have an incredible track record for employee relations, and people from all over the world that say Singapore is one of the best countries to work in, it's because the government sets a priority and has certain regulators in place to make sure that all employers comply. Now, if we talk about international HR, SHRM, or the Australian Society of Human Resources, Australian Institute of Human Resources, or the the European Institute of Human Resources, or the American Institute of Human Resources, HR professionals all over the world for years have said to their government, you need to regulate HR practices at a federal level. But then you have governments in China saying, well, hold on, we have 100 million people. Do we have the time for that? No. You have somebody like Australia saying, okay, we regulate it, but we have unions. So we also have to listen to what the unions say, because industrial relations in Australia is part of their heritage, and it's going to take a long time to get rid of it. Now let's go to another facet. If you go to countries where industrial relations are no longer a facet, if you go to countries like Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Amman, okay, they have ministries of employment, minister of employment. And these governments are so focused on getting their people to work, it's not funny. I'll give you an example. In Bahrain, they have a minister for employment, and his function with his department is to make sure that every Bahraini who is educated, whether the government sends him overseas on a scholarship or educated locally, is motivated to work. And what they say to employers is, every time you employ a Bahraini national, we will subsidize his salary for the first year. You understand that? That's how committed the government of the state of Bahrain is. I'll give you an example. Many years ago, there was a program by the government of Bahrain through its Minister for Education to make some 60,000 Bahraini graduates work. So what they did, these Bahraini graduates came back from overseas. They were educated in Switzerland, the UK, and Australia at the government's expense. They came back to Bahrain, and every week, if you're a Bahraini, the government pays you a salary if you're not working, all right? So the government said, we will provide you mentorship, coaching, but you have to find a job. And when you find a job, we will pay your employer a certain amount of money to pay you a high salary, more than what you get every month off the government. Now, it took the Bahraini government 6 months to get the locals to understand that, because they said, why should I work? You already pay me 800 dinar a month. That's $8,000 US a month to stay at home. Why should I go to work? I don't want to work. All right. So after the government saw that, they had another version. They said, okay, if you don't try to find a job in the next 6 months, I'll reduce your monthly income. That's when all Bahrainis started finding jobs. So the government set its goal and took action to make sure they employ as many people as possible. So there's a difference when you compare the Bahraini government to the China government or to your government. Some governments care, some of them don't. Does that answer your question, Thomas? Okay, great. Does anybody else have any questions about industrial relations or anything else that I've explained today? Does anybody else have any questions? Don't be shy, guys. I'd love to answer them. I'm here to help. Does anybody else have any questions? Don't be shy. Put up your hand. Okay, I have a question from Lusheen. Hi, Lusheen. What's your question? Go ahead, Lusheen. Yes, Lusheen.
Hi, Mr. Wally.
Hi, how are you?
I would like to know, like, what country do you know that has like have their employee as their most priority, like a priority of like employees' welfare? Do you know some?
Which
Because I would
companies?
love to go there.
Which
Now, what
companies?
country and what company to be specific?
Well, let me tell you, Singapore is a country where employee benefits and relations is a first priority. That's for sure, because I'm in Singapore and I've been here for more than 30 years. If you take countries like Japan, Singapore, Australia, any of those, first economies, you'll find, other than the US, you'll find that employees are rewarded fairly, very well. I mean, listen, I can't say that in the US, companies like Apple do reward you well, but unfortunately, they reward you well whilst you're productive. They don't care about it when you don't become productive. And as I told you, Apple is not there to set your career path. You have to get yourself trained. So that is a shortfall for Apple. But if you know your job really well and you want a high salary, then Apple is an ideal employer. All right. But, there's many countries around the world, whether you look at Australia, Japan, Singapore, Switzerland. Switzerland is very, very strong on employee relations. A lot of these countries are very, very predominantly strong. But if you look at individual companies, I don't want to name companies. That's something that you have to do your research on, because otherwise students will say that I'm biased or discriminate. But, there's companies around the world that have an incredible track record. If you look at Singapore Airlines, if you look at people like Bell, or if you look at people like, in Australia, AAMI, some companies that you might not recognize. If you look at McDonald's, internationally, they maintain minimum work standards for their employees and crew all over the world, and they have minimum pay standards which their restaurants all over the world must pay, and they have rewards and benefits all over the world. If you look at Starbucks has been known to have certain standards for all its people around the world. Starbucks don't call you an employee. They don't call you a coffee maker. They call you a partner. So when you work for Starbucks, you're not employee number 114, you're partner number 114. So they build the focus on making sure that they're employee-centric and reward their employees. So I hope that answers your questions, Machine. Does that help you?
Yeah. Thank you so much. And some more. Like, I know this is very subjective. It's up for you to answer this or not. What is your ideal good company that compensates you well, that you can say like, oh, I would love to stay longer? Yeah.
Lashane, you're putting me in a very difficult position, because somebody here.
Yeah, that's why it's subjective. It's up for you to answer or not. So I know it's a hard question.
Lashane,
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to answer in a very broad way. What you should do is look at the company you work for, find out who its competitors are, go to the competitor's website and see whether the package you have is compatible with the package you have now. All right? Then, if you live
thank you so much.
if you live in Southeast Asia, don't only compare it to your country, compare it to other countries in the same zone. All right? And if you have trouble doing that, you can go to one of the HR websites around the world. Okay, there's many websites around the world, and ask that website, is this company a good employer or not? And it will certainly tell you the employee feedback. All right, but I can't really name a company, Lucien, because you'll get me into trouble. Maybe if you want to call me or message me one day, we'll have a chat, and I might.
I understand.
All right.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you so much for that wonderful.
Oh, welcome. It's my pleasure, young lady. Thank you. All right. Does anybody else have a question for me? Okay. Who am I talking to? Hi, Mary Jane. Go ahead, Mary Jane. Hi, Mary Jane. Are you there, Mary Jane?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening.
Hi.
Hi, hello. It's all about industrial relations, because I'm a Filipino. I'm in the Philippines, but my question is, no, this is the scenario which is probably known around the world. We Filipinos values very highly about our education. And most of us, even we coming from a poor family, we value education, that we really, each family really need to make their children graduate in college, even during hard times. But the thing is, when it comes to finding works, we cannot find it in our country. So Filipinos are known worldwide to go abroad, to work abroad. We graduate in a teaching course, but we go to become an OFW, a domestic helper, which is mostly the common one in the Philippines. So in
Yeah, but Mary
relation to
Jane,
this, in the yeah, yeah,
Mary
yeah.
Jane, I'll
That's
tell you what the
why
problem is.
yes.
Let me tell you, answer your problem. You're wrong, actually.
Mm.
But okay, it's not that the current government emphasizes the priority on education. It's not your government. It's actual fact, it's the Filipino culture that places a high standard of education on
Yeah,
society.
yeah.
So the government must pursue that, and the government must keep saying that, because otherwise the president would never win an election. All right? So that's number one. Number
Correct.
two,
You got it right. You got it right.
okay, the Filipino way of politics is focused very much like the US. It's all about which congressman becomes president, and his job is to play the status quo. Make sure I
Yeah.
keep the economy working, make sure I become a millionaire, and make sure that the people have no reason to riot. So it's not about whether they want to do it. It's just that it's not a priority for them. It's not a priority right now. They don't care. And, you know, you're wrong when you say education is their priority. It's not. Education is a Filipino cultural requirement, like in Singapore. In Singapore, kids have to go to school. Kids must study 2 languages. And Singaporeans practice kiasu. Your kid has to be better than his brother or sister or his neighbor. All right? It's a culture. It's not a policy. Do you understand that? But in Singapore, the Singapore government is genuine about it because it supports that culture by saying to parents, if your kids need help at school, the government have programs to help them rather than you spend money on private tuition. In Australia, it's the same. But in other countries like the Philippines, it's not the government, it's the culture. Do you understand that? Now, your next question was, most Filipinos go abroad to work. I know that. I know Filipino teachers that are teaching primary school in Thailand because they can't find a job in the Philippines. I know that. I know about 20 of them when I used to work in Thailand many years ago. All right? Because I was their boss. All right? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So it's sad. Now, you mentioned about Filipinos becoming domestic helpers. Again, that's not because you want to. That's because your government have become complacent. They don't care. They know that Filipinos are prepared to work as domestic helpers, so let them go. Do you understand that? Yes or no?
Yes. You know, I'm happy that because I'm giving you a vague question, but you hit it right. And I'm very glad that you know the workings of our government to the dot, up to the very correct not presumptions but assumptions. You are correct. That's why you are correct. I'm a teacher, but I used to work as a domestic helper in Hong Kong way before. And then came back here, I make a small business. But I'm so sad that our government is not as what you told me, which is right. They're not really true to their words. They're just,
unfortunately,
you know,
all I can do, Mary Jane, is pray that one day they will be. But thank you for your feedback. Thank you, Mary Jane.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the last person that's got their hands up. Hi, Mylene. Go ahead, Mylene. How can I help you? Go ahead, Mylene.
Hello, sir. I just wanted to ask, after we graduated in this university, do they give us recommendations if ever we wanted to work in the other country?
Mylene, what you can do is message me via WhatsApp about that and I'll answer you. All right? Send me a message by WhatsApp and I'll answer you. Mr. Govind, can you send my WhatsApp number to Mylene through a private chat, please? Thank you, Mylene. Okay, go ahead. Yes, can I talk to Jenilyn? Go ahead, Jenilyn. Jenilyn, go ahead.
Hi. Actually, would like to ask if can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. How do industrial relations impact the relationship between employees, employer, trade unions, and government agencies?
How do they impact the relationship? Well, let me
Yeah.
tell you, depending on how much power industrial relations law in a country gives a union, decides how dangerous a union can be in controlling your operation. For an example, industrial relations laws in the United Kingdom allow a union to decide whether their workers are getting the right package, and it allows them to negotiate on their behalf with their employer. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware of the world industrial relations scene, but many years ago, Air France in France, British Airways in Britain, Lufthansa in Germany were crippled because the unions in those countries told their staff to stop work. In Germany, they told all their captains to stop flying. In Britain, they told all their cabin crew not to work anymore until British Airways answered the union's demands. In Australia, Qantas was crippled because the union banned any of its flight attendants for flying when the airline decided to outsource flight attendants. So that's how powerful industrial relations can be, depending on how much empowerment they allow the unions. So what you'll find has happened since that is that the British parliaments, the German parliament, the Australian parliament have reviewed the abilities of the unions to cause industrial action or to bring industrial action. They can't stop them, but they can manage it or limit it by setting up certain protocols that before a union calls industrial strike, they must go through certain steps of negotiating with the employer, and only then are they allowed to go to that stage. But that's how it impacts it. So it comes down to how much power they have based on the law, how big the union is, how much impact that union has on the airline or the industry. All of those play a part. Does that answer your question, gentlemen?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you
You're
so much.
welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, does anybody else have any questions for me today? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining BizTalk 99. It's been my absolute pleasure having you here. And I hope I've left you with a serious understanding of how important employee relations are to a business being successful. When you receive your certificate, you will also receive a copy of today's PowerPoint. If you have any questions or you want to ask any questions about what you've learned, please drop me a message or an email. I'd be happy to help. I would also like to remind you to visit us on social media. We are on YouTube, we are on Instagram, and we are on Facebook at the Apex Stories. You will be able to watch this lecture again on YouTube in about 7 days at the Apex Stories. Am I right, Mr. Govind? 7 days? Thank you very much. If you need to watch the video again or you want to learn anything, you can listen to the lecture again on YouTube. But please do me a favor. Go to social media today and give me the thumbs up. Say, Mr. Wally or Wally, I enjoyed your BizTalk. Can everybody do that for me? Yes or no? Because that will help other people coming to BizTalk. If you know other students, whether they're our current students or our past students, do me a favor, tell them, why don't you join me for BizTalk? All the BizTalk lectures have helped me. All right, please go ahead and tell your friends. All right, everyone. Thank you everyone for joining me today. On behalf of myself and my co-host, Mr. Govind, we really enjoyed your company. I look forward to seeing you again at the next leadership or BizTalk session. Thank you and God bless you all. Thank you, everyone. God bless you all. Good night, everyone. Enjoy your day. Thank you, Mr. Govind. Thank you, everyone. We look forward to seeing you again in the very near future. Goodbye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Cao Tung. Thank you, Hajit. Nice to see you again, Hajit, with your beautiful smile. I'll see you at the next BizTalk. Thank you. Thank you, Nat Pansy. Nice to see you again, young lady. Keep on smiling. God bless you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dizanis. I'll see you again soon. Thank you, Thomas.